So Scott is saying, the other day I was trading and was up by my daily target. I said I would walk away, but then got back in and lost double what I had gained. I knew that I should have quit when I gave back all of my gains, but didn't. I knew what I was doing was against everything in my plan, increasing size and stop loss, but just kept trading. What was going on psychologically? These are just habits, bad habits that we do that are against what we intend to do, but it's just a habit. It's a bad behavior that go against our plan. Any kind of behavior that you engage in, there's a trigger, and then there's the behavior, and then there's some kind of reinforcement. Sometimes it's called a reward. Reinforcers are things that will cause you to do that behavior again. For example, anytime that I'm stressed, I tend to break my rules, go against what I intended to do. Stress for me can be a trigger. Then the behavior is breaking my rules, maybe over trading, maybe risking more, those types of behavior. The payoff or the reward, even though it's a bad thing, is sometimes you win. That's really bad because then you're reinforced to do that again. Sometimes it's like thrill. So if you're frustrated, even though it's a negative thing, it's kind of, I always use the example of like stealing, right? Stealing is wrong, stealing is bad, but you do get a rush from it. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a moral behavior and an immoral behavior, chemically speaking. You just get that rush and your brain says, ooh, that feels good. You get this sort of psychological rush, even when things go against us. I still struggle with this. If you watched the interview that I did with Robert Cooney, he has talked about it got easier. It was hard to do those behaviors. They don't come naturally. That's the thing about trading too, is a lot of this goes against our inherent nature. We want to fight for more. We want to push for more. We want to do more. And that can really be detrimental. And so the best advice I can give you, having a trading plan that is written down. You can have a trading plan on a document on your computer, but also maybe have post-it. Put plans in place. For example, at noon every day, you break for lunch, or 11 or whatever. Maybe find an accountability buddy that you can talk to. You can always post on my videos as well, a comment saying, I followed my rules today. Doing the mindset warm-up, really practicing, and that will not make you infallible. It will not be a foolproof way to never break your rules, but it does help prepare you. And sometimes I utilize trader timeout. If I really break my rules or lose too much, sometimes I just need a trader timeout, which means maybe I take a day off or 2 days off. Psychologically, it makes perfect sense that you would do that. And behaviorally, you just got to make changes that are going to fit for you and that you personally will agree to. I think of it as a contract with myself. Things that I am willing to agree to with myself. It does help to understand the connection between behaviors, thoughts, and emotions. Behaviors, thoughts, and emotions are all related, all go together, and they affect each other. The issue is bad behavior. A lot of times when you hear people talk about psychology, they focus on emotion, how you feel. Primary emotions that we have are fear, anger, sadness, disgust, surprise, and joy or happiness. In addition to your emotions are your thoughts. The key here is we know that your emotions impact your behavior. If you are scared, you're going to respond a certain way. If you are angry, you're going to respond a certain way. So how you feel impacts how you behave. How you behave also impacts how you feel. We do this with the mindset warm-up, where we assume a position of power and confidence, reminding ourselves that we are in control of ourselves, of our behavior. We're not in control of price action, the market, but we can control our decisions. We can control how much risk we take. And smiling can increase optimism. Our thoughts are impacted by our behavior, and our behavior is impacted by our thought. If I think I'm a loser, I feel bad about myself, the way I think is going to impact how I behave. On the other hand, if I want to feel better about myself, I might decide, you know what, I'm going to walk in the room with confidence. Or if I'm going to a job interview or something, I'm going to behave confidently. And that behavior can impact how I think about myself. Again, your behavior can change your thoughts, and your thoughts can impact your behavior. Likewise, your emotions are also related to your thought. If you are driving in the car, somebody cuts you off and you think, oh my gosh, what a jerk. I can't believe they did that. You're going to be angry. That could impact your behavior. On the other hand, if you have a passenger with you and that passenger turns around and says, oh my gosh, that car was on fire, you're going to have some new information that's going to explain to you why somebody cut you off. That thought, that knowledge is going to change your emotion, and you might go, oh, wow, I feel so relieved. I'm glad they were able to make it over to the side of the road. Hope everybody's okay. I'm glad they didn't hit me. I hope they can get help. So your thoughts are going to change or impact your emotions. So when you have bad behaviors, keep in mind there is a habit loop. You have a trigger, something that starts the process. I'm not sure specifically why you didn't walk away, but maybe you can identify it. Maybe it was overconfident. That for me can be a barrier. If I'm feeling overconfident, that's why in the mindset warm up, a lot of times we will talk about reminding ourselves of our thoughts that are helpful and that serve us. For example, I'm not a genius. I'm not a hero. This is just trading. This is just what I do. That's important for me because sometimes when I get a couple wins under my belt, I think this is easy, right? Or I'm doing great. Look at me go. And you become a little bit sloppy, or I do anyway. Then you have reinforcement. A trigger for me that causes bad behavior is stress. When I'm feeling stressed, I tend to do the wrong thing. I tend to break my rules, trade too much, maybe get desperate as a trader. So I knew I moved at the beginning of the last day in May. And so I knew, summer market aside, I knew that June was going to be a tricky month for me because I don't trade that well when I'm stressed, disorganized, that kind of. That's my trigger. Stress, moving, having the kids home from school. I love having them home from school, but it changes my daily routine. Those are all triggers for me. Behavior. My behavior changed, right? I started to break my rules, do things that I had gone all May and not broken any of my, the safety of flight rules. Not that I never made a mistake, but the really big important ones, behaviors changed. They were sometimes reinforced. If you're familiar with intermittent reinforcement, if every time you did the wrong thing, you lost a trade, you would probably never do those things. Maybe you would because you're still reinforced in the sense that you get that chemical rush, like I said, from trading. But if you lost every single trade that you took that you shouldn't have taken, you would be less likely to do those behaviors. This is a loop. So trigger, behavior, reinforcement, repeat. The reinforcement happens, the reward, the payoff, whatever you want to think of it as, and then you repeat. So the next time you're triggered, you engage in that behavior and then it's reinforced. This happens whether it is good behavior or bad behavior. So if you have a bad behavior that you want to change, you need a new habit loop so that you engage in different behavior. You may or may not know what your trigger is, but you know what your behavior is. Maybe to avoid the reinforcement, to avoid that behavior is next time you hit your profit target, you don't go in your office again that day. You close your computer, you walk away, you go and do those errands that you have been avoiding and putting off and you don't have time to do. Suddenly you have time to do it. Maybe you have to go to the car wash. Maybe you have to run a Target. All these things, whatever it is, create a new habit, create a new reinforcement. And you can even do something you enjoy. So let's say you really like boba tea or something like that. You say, okay, I hit my profit target. I'm going to go get myself boba tea. That's your reinforcement. That's your new behavior. And that's how you're going to do your new behavior loop. Just know, in the meantime, you got to give yourself grace because we all do it. We all struggle. None of us are perfect. If this is the problem, figure out a new reinforcement in this habit. My advice is always, if you're dealing with bad behaviors or any behaviors, your emotions you can manage, but you cannot control. Your thoughts are 100% yours and 100% within your control. How can you manage your thoughts so that you're in your best position to succeed? Sometimes it's just experience. You got to touch that hot. So when I learn a lesson from the market, sometimes I have to learn it more than once. Sometimes it takes me a couple times and then finally my brain goes, oh yeah, I can't do that again. I learned that lesson this time. So sometimes you might have to touch the hot stove more than once. Now, if you're using Top Step, they do have a lockout button where you can lock yourself out if you find yourself engaging in behaviors that are problematic and you want to lock yourself out for the day. You can do that on Top Step, but actually doing it yourself is even more powerful because it puts the power in your hands and you're making the decision. Of course, you're still making the decision when you push the button to lock yourself out. For example, there's a max loss limit that you have in mind. Let's say it's $1,000. Maybe you do the lockout button, $1,500. So you get to experience the empowering benefit of locking yourself out. But if you don't do it, you still have that backstop to keep you safe.